Hey everyone, it is Friday, January 20th, 2023. It has been a little over a year since I've made a YouTube video with Benjamin, and this this one is different in many regards to the ones that I've done in the past, and for a few different reasons. But one of those is that I'm making this for two very specific groups of people. The first group is for my colleagues here at Shema Collective: Clint, Lori, Jay, Eric, Amy, and Ann. And then the second group is to each one of you who are my clients. Um, there are going to be two different parts to this. The first part will just take about 5 minutes here, and then we'll fade out, take a break, and go into the second part. I would love for you to watch all of it, but uh, especially the first part is really important for you to know and to hear. About 21, 22 years ago, I was sitting in a class in graduate school, and I had a professor who used a word as he was talking about something that I had never heard before. And that word is denouement. It's spelled Denoument. And that word it's a French literary term that signifies, in an arc of a story, it signifies the climax of a story. And sometimes that's the climax of a story, and sometimes it can refer to a climax that is within a story. And right now in my life, my wife and I and our family are living in a denouement. We're living at the climax of a story. And um, you know, I think as I've thought about this, the ideal way for me to share this with you would be, and what I would want to do would be to sit down with each one of you individually and in person and have this conversation with you. Realistically, my fear in doing that was that people would begin to hear this from other people and not from me. And that felt more potentially destructive and harmful than making a video to give to you so that I can share this with you myself. And I didn't want to write an email that felt very impersonal, and so this was the way that I decided to share this with you. And this past Friday, a week ago, Angie and I made the final decision in our lives that at the end of May of this year, we are going to be moving to Grand Junction, Colorado, about 3.5 to 4 hours west of here. The second part of this video is I want to share with you why we're doing that and share with you some of the story behind that. And I hope that and believe that that will be a gift to some of you. But in just this first part, I wanted to share with you what we're doing, and I want to also tell you practically how that will affect you. Is that about 25% of the clients that I see, you guys that I see on a weekly basis, I already meet with online over Zoom. It would be helpful to say that when we move to Grand Junction, I will be continuing my counseling practice there, just in a different location. And so for those of you who I already meet with online, this decision will have really little to no effect on you at all, other than that I will be in a different place when we meet. The only effect that might have on you is when we actually make that move. There could be a week or possibly 2 weeks in there that I take off just to transition. But otherwise, it really shouldn't have much of a practical effect on you, if any. For those of you who I see in person, clearly it'll have a practical effect on you, and that I won't be here anymore. And my desire would be to continue to meet with each and every one of you each week or every other week, uh, as we currently do, to continue to walk with you through your life and through your journey. And but I I wanted to share this news with you sooner than later. We will be here for about another 4 months, and I wanted to share it with you on the front end to uh, for a multitude of reasons, but to um, give us time to, for some of you, it's possible that you may not want to continue, that you want to meet with somebody else in person. And I could understand that. And over the next few months, if that's the case, then I would want to finish working with you and help you to find a new place. The uh, I work with a lot of wonderful people here, and if that's your desire, I can help you to make a transition to that. Um, and uh, you know, those are the practical realities. But I also realize in sharing this with you that um, for some of you, it might not matter to you, but I know for some of you, this will have a significant effect on you. You might experience anger or sadness, hurt. Um, it, it it's hard for me to predict how it will affect each of you, but as I think about each one of you, it really, it breaks my heart to realize that the reality that you might feel abandoned is very real. And the truth is, I'm leaving. And so there is the reality that I'm abandoning you in the sense that I'm not going to be here anymore. And I want to just be able to have what I would just say to you is, from an emotional standpoint, the reason why I would want to have this conversation with each of you face to face is to be able to process through what you're experiencing. And I want you to know I welcome that and would love to have conversations with each of you around how this is affecting your life. Um, I'll close just this first part by saying that this morning I got here a bit earlier than Benjamin, and I came into my office, and I turned off all the lights, and I lit my candle and sat on my little cushion on the floor, and I crossed my legs, and I do that every day now when I come in, and I usually just sit and I meditate and I breathe and I just sink down into myself before I meet with you, so that I can give you all of myself as we sit and we meet together. And this morning I came in, and when I sat down, I just started to picture each and every one of you, and I walked through every single person that I see in this office, and I sat and I held my hands like this, and I imagine myself holding each of your face in my hands, and I saw your 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 tears, your laughter, your joy, and as a um, I would say in all of the work that I do with each and every one of you, um, there are moments where I meet with you and you are sharing with me, and you are, it's as if your heart becomes completely naked and you become completely vulnerable with me, and you let me see you. And man, those those moments when I get to see you and see inside of you are, uh, they're they're gold to me and precious to me. And um, as I walk through and just took several moments with every one of your faces, and remembering your faces in this space, and knowing that soon I'm going to be leaving this space and I'm not going to see you in this space anymore. um, I, I want you to know that it really breaks my heart to know that that's true. And um, I the only part about making this transition for us that's hard is leaving people behind that I won't be able to see in person anymore. This place, Shema Collective, has been an incredible gift in my life, and it is um, it's an important step for us to take, but it is also full of a lot of grief for me personally, to walk away from so many people, so many good people that I love, that I won't see on a daily basis anymore. And I don't know what this will be like for you, but I really want to talk with you each in person, and to process that with you. And so I'll end this part for now, and then I'm going to come back in a minute after a break, and I want to share a little bit more of the story with you. All right, part two. If I want to say that if you're not ready to watch this part, um, again, it's hard for me to know how this might affect each and every one of you. And so if you're not ready to watch this part, just wait and watch it another time. Um, but I did want to share why we're going and how this came. So I don't want to. I could share hours of stories here. I don't want to do that. Um, so I'm going to try to keep this somewhat brief. But five about 5.5 years ago, I was Clint, my friend and colleague here, and I were working in a different organization as therapists, where we did a lot of counseling intensives where couples would fly in from around the United States, and they would come and they would meet with me, or with Clint or another therapist for 30 hours over the course of 2 weeks, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week for 2 weeks. And I really fell in love with that type of work. Um, and I was doing way too much of it. And when we got to the end of that time, he and I both made the decision independently of one another to leave that organization. And Clint came to me during that time, and he asked me, he said, "Hey, would you like to start a counseling practice together?" And I didn't even think about that at the time. I didn't even hesitate. And I said, "No, absolutely not. I don't want to do anything with anybody right now," because I was so tired and exhausted and just worn out and burnt out. And I had planned on getting a little office in Lakewood near where we live and just seeing clients. But I knew then that there was something inside of me that was that needed some serious attention. I was just exhausted. And he asked me to continue to talk about it. And over a period of about 2 or 3 weeks, he and I spent a lot of time together. We probably spent 30 or 40 hours together over a very short period of time. And as we continued to talk about, he the possibility of starting a practice together. Through a lot of conversation, long story short, I said yes. The name of our counseling practice is Shema Collective. And the reason why we called it that is because that word Shema is a word that's used all throughout the Old Testament. And what that word means is to listen intently, hear, follow, and obey the voice of love. And when we came up with that name for our practice, I didn't realize that was really probably more for me than for anybody, that I needed to shema, so to speak. I needed to listen like I had never listened before. And as I listened and I heard and I had the courage to follow that voice, not knowing where that voice would take me, all of a sudden the power that started coming back into my life grew, and it grew and it grew. And the things that have happened in my life and things that I've done over the last 5 years, I never would have imagined doing before. And I've just gotten clearer and clearer on that voice inside of me. And in this past last year, at the beginning of May, we Angie and I had been beginning to talk about our lives, and our boys are getting older. Our oldest son moved out. Our second son, he's halfway through his post high school education, and our boys are just growing up and they're beginning to move on with their lives. And Angie and I have begun asking the question, what do we really want, and what is the life that we really want to live? And we have this quote that is in our bathroom above the toilet, so we all see it every day, and I read that thing every single day when I go in there. And it's a quote by this guy named Eliud Kipchoge, who's the world record holder he's run the fastest marathon in history. He's a guy from Kenya, and the quote is this: "You live simple, you train hard, and live an honest life, and then you are free." You live simple, you train hard, and live an honest life, and then you are free. And I see that every day. And one of the things, what that means is live a very simple life. And I don't mean an easy life, but I mean simple, like get really clear on what's deep inside of you. And it's usually not that complicated, but follow that. And then work your body. We all have different bodies. We all have different things that are wrong with us or not wrong with us. Some of you are healthy, some of you aren't healthy, but I wasn't healthy, and I had to begin to go, okay, I'm going to take care of this body that I have, which ultimately began to lead me deeper into myself. And the more that I heard that voice in myself, the more honest I began to get. So the end of that quote, live an honest life, it does mean tell the truth, like don't lie. But what it means on a deeper level is your life your honest life? Is it honestly you? Or are you living a life of what everybody else expects you to do and to be? But in that you forfeit and you sacrifice yourself, your honest self, what is honestly me. And so when Jesus said, let your yes be yes and your no be no, that's what he's talking about when you say yes, do you mean it? And when you say no, mean it. Mean what you say and say what you mean, and let your life be an honest representation of what's actually inside of you. And when you do that, you discover your true power. And you really do. In that passage when Jesus said, are you tired, are you worn out, are you burned out? Come follow me, walk with me, learn how do I do it. And what you will begin to learn is that you will begin to walk in the unforced rhythms of grace. And so when we came here to this practice, I began a journey of walking in a rhythm that wasn't forced, but was coming from deep within me and began to transform me from the inside out. And so then this last May, as Angie and I are having conversations about where do we want to be and what do we see for our future, we were at a wedding. And there was a guy that I had met before, and I was talking to him at the reception after the wedding. His name is Mark. And Mark was telling me that he was a high school teacher in Grand Junction, Colorado, and he was describing Grand Junction to me. And I just knew when he was describing I wasn't expecting this, but I heard this from this deep place inside of me, you're going to move to Grand Junction. So I go to Angie at the reception and I said, I think we might be moving to Grand Junction at some point in time. She says to me, where's Grand Junction? And I said, I don't know. And she said, what direction is it? And I said, I don't know. And she said, how far away is it? And I said, I don't know. I mean, I literally didn't know anything about it other than that I had heard the name. And we went on a trip not very long after that to Grand Junction to actually see this place. And we got there and we just instantly fell in love with this place. And with the simplicity of the place, the peace of the place. We have, I think, over the last, we've been in Colorado for 15 years. And over the last 15 years, I think just the noise and the chaos and the traffic and all of what happens in a city has just made us more and more tired. And I think one of the things that we have longed for is to be in a place where it's just a lot more simple. It's just a very simple place, but where we can go and we can be outside and we can run and we can mountain bike. But then another big important part of that for me is that what I have grown to understand more and more deeply is that two of the things that I want to spend the rest of my life doing are writing is one, and then the second one is doing a lot more counseling intensives where people, again, they come in from around the country and I meet with them over a 2-week period of time, and we move deeply into their life and into their story, and we unpack that and help them to find their self, so that when they go back home, they are connected with a deep sense of self, and then they grow in that place. And I've done a lot of those out here in Denver. And one of the things that I haven't liked about doing them in Denver is that people come and they stay in a hotel, and then they come and meet with me, and then they go back to their hotel. But it's just, there's so much noise around it that I've wanted to do intensives in a place that people can come to, and they can come and meet with me, and then they leave meeting with me, and they can go on walks through the mesas. Grand Junction, if you're not familiar with it, is high desert, so there aren't mountains there, but there are a lot of mesas, cactuses, sand, and it's beautiful in its own way. But where people can come and they can meet with me, and then they can get out very easily into an environment where they can walk and they can journal, they can run if they want to, but they can be in this quiet, simple place for 2 weeks of their life to really be able to get away from the noise and sink down in to be able to hear themselves. Because one of the biggest things that keeps us from hearing ourselves, and I'll say this a minute. I was telling somebody this earlier this week, but the ego or the flesh or the false self or the mind is so loud that people can't hear their self. And so then people come in, clients come in, and a lot of times clients tell me what their problem, you tell me what your problems are, and then you look to me to tell you what the answer is or what you should do. And what I would say to every person is, the reason why I don't give hardly any advice is because the answers that you need are actually already deep inside of you. They're deep in yourself. The problem is your mind is so loud you can't hear it. And so then you have to begin to quiet the mind and to learn how to, that's why meditation is such an important practice in my life, because I sit and I just breathe and I quiet the mind, and I begin to experience my feelings, but then I sink down deeper into myself, where I know peace and where I know quiet and where I hear myself and where I connect to the ultimate source of life and goodness and joy and peace and patience and power and all of the good stuff. That's where I connect with that. And then I meet with you and I bring all of that to you, and I receive what you're saying, ultimately to try to get you to connect to that place inside of you, because that's where the answers are, and that's where your freedom is, and that's where your power comes from, and that's where life comes from, and that's where joy and love and all of the good things come from. And so doing intensives in a place that is quiet, it has been such a high priority to me for such a long time, so that people can get out of the noise to really truly begin to listen to themselves. And so we want to live a very simple life. We want to live a very, and again, I want to say this, I don't mean an easy life. I just mean simple, like not that complicated, like figuring out what is inside of you and then doing that with all of your heart. That's the life that we are really committed to living. And there is something about Grand Junction, Colorado that just resonates so deeply with who we are. It feels like we're being called there, like we're being invited there, we're being pulled into that place. But one of the things that I would just say to you guys before we go is that over the course of time, I don't, Angie and I are both about to turn 48 years old. When I conceive of myself or think of myself, I think of myself as being about 30 years old. So I don't, but when I look at the actual number, it's like, well, it keeps getting higher and it's going to keep getting higher. And as I keep getting older, and the things that I want to do are intensives and writing. I do a lot of writing, and what I would say to you guys is that there have been many of you over time that have said things to me like, man, I wish I could just spend like a half of a day with you, or a whole day with you, or several days with you, just talking about all of this stuff. And what I would say is that when we make that transition and move there, all of that is a possibility, in the sense that, I want to continue to meet with as many of you who want to continue to meet on a weekly basis over Zoom. But but I would also say that if there comes a time when you want to leave here and take a drive for 4 hours and go west for 2 or 3 days, and find an Airbnb in town and be outside and be in a place that's really simple and really peaceful, and then spend time with me talking about your life, where we have more time and more hours to be together. Those are all possibilities and invitations to you, if that's something that would be good for you. But I just want to close this by saying to each of you that are watching it, again, I said this in the first part, but if I already meet with you online, would love to, we'll just continue that, and that this won't really have an effect on you. But again, for every person that I meet with in my office weekly, I would love to continue to meet with you online each week during our appointed time. I know it's different. During COVID, that's all that we did. And I don't know a lot of people that like that better than meeting in person. I definitely prefer meeting in person. That's better. But I also have gotten very comfortable meeting with people online, and would love to continue to do that with each one of you. And we'll talk about that one-on-one. I'll have those conversations with each of you to determine what you want moving forward, and I'll help you with that, whatever that is. If that's to continue to meet with me, or finding somebody else that would be better for you that you could meet in person, we can talk about all of that. But for now, those are the kind of the nuts and the bolts of why we're moving there and what has led us to that place. And man, I guess just I would just close by saying I don't know what questions you have or what any of this brings up for you, but I would love to enter into any of that with each and every one of you. And so just know that I care about you, and I love you, and I want to continue to walk with you through this process. And I'll just close it at that for now and say goodbye. But thank you for watching, and I'll see each of you soon.